Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Pelt Music Podcast. Shortly, we'll be chatting with the one and only Jamie Lenman, but before then, the usual reminders from myself. If you would, please do follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And if you would, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, wherever you're watching or listening. Well, welcome Jamie Lenman to the Full Pelt Music Podcast. How are you this fine day?
Yes, I'm very good. Thank you very much. I've been doing some woodwork. Would you believe it? That's not my usual thing. Although I do, actually thinking about it, I'm often doing woodwork. People don't know me for my woodwork, but maybe they will. Maybe it's a new chapter opening up for me. Are you okay, Paul?
Yeah, no, absolutely delighted to have you on the podcast. Must say that we've really been looking forward to this one. You've just come out of a couple of shows that you've played, Southampton and Tunbridge Wells, the last couple of nights. How did they go for you?
They were really, really, really great. They because I've got a new sort of band, by which I mean I've added a guitar player to the lineup, so we're now going out as 3 people, which is very exciting. And we've only really played. We did 2 festivals and a support slot, so I haven't played in front of my crowd, shall we say. With this new lineup, and the Joiners in Southampton, that's a venue that I go to regularly, so that was a lot of fun to go there and have like a really full room, and all the people that I recognize from previous shows, and so they can sort of compare and contrast and sit there and stroke their chins and go crazy, and the bands are really good on that one as well. In Tunbridge Wells, I don't think I've actually played Tunbridge Wells as a solo act before. I must have played it years ago with the band, and in fact I've played it when I was in 100 Reasons as well. I was in 100 Reasons for about a month playing bass, but I've never played it as Jamie Lenman. So that was more of like a litmus test to see who's there, who's listening. You never know when you go to these towns. No. And there was a good bunch of people there. It was great. And then the shows that we're going to do the week after next, St. Albans and Hertford, I don't think I've ever played there at all in any manifestation. So that's going to be even more exciting. So we started, on familiar territory at the Joiners in Southampton, and now we're going into the deepest, darkest jungles of the UK. It's all very exciting. But the shows themselves were fantastic, and the crowds are great, and I'm just so pleased to be out there.
Yeah, no, I mean, there are some fantastic venues. I'm going to talk to you a little bit later about, independent venues. But, I mean, the Forum in Tunbridge Wells is an iconic, like, fantastic independent venue. The Joiners, is like one of the first venues that many bands will play, and is just another great venue. And the Horn in St. Albans, where you're playing next week, is one that I've frequented over the years as well. Very good independent venue. Never been to the Hertford venue. I think that's a new one that's opened up in the last year or so.
Okay, but, I mean, do you live near the Horn? Do you live near St. Albans?
I unfortunately live near no music venues whatsoever. I have to travel wherever.
I was going to put you on the list. Let me know if you feel like making the trek.
Yeah, no, I'll have a look at that, definitely. And you mentioned the support slot you played.
Yes.
So that was a support on Lonely the Brave in Cambridge, and I was one of the people stood at the back scratching my chin.
There we go. Well,
yeah.
The lowdown. We had a blast at that show.
Yeah, that was a fantastic show all round, and getting to witness you and the new band that you've put together, was fantastic. And obviously, we'll touch on it, I guess, a bit more as we go through. But you do seem to be kind of firing on all cylinders, at the moment, which is
I hope so. Great.
Yeah, no, definitely. But before we get to the present, I want to take you back to the past slightly. About a year and a half ago, we were emerging out of the horribleness of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And you played at the Download Pilot Festival, which I was privileged enough to be at.
Wow.
It was kind of a life affirming few days for me as a music fan, having thought potentially I was never going to get to another show again.
Yeah.
I think that's a festival that will live with me forever, just for the memories and the atmosphere of everyone coming back together. So I just wanted to get your thoughts as an artist that played at that festival. What were your experiences of, getting to play that show, and how did it come together for you to do so?
Well, I think the word you used, privilege, is the word that I would use to describe the whole affair. I think that's a very good word
Yeah.
is there. We'll never see anything. Well, I hope God damn it, we'll never see anything like that again. unprecedented circumstances, and the music industry was in such turmoil. And here was a genuine experiment to see, like, could we make it work? And as soon as I heard it was happening, everyone wanted to be at that show. It was like the only festival within 2 years, right? Absolutely everyone was crossing their fingers and hoping they'd get asked. And I got asked. I felt like the prettiest girl at the ball, I couldn't believe my luck. There was like 8 bands on. I got more than that, but it was significantly reduced. And so to be asked was just so magical, and I was so happy. And then when we got there, God, it was even more exciting, quite apart from the fact that it kind of worked. Everyone got tested on the way in, makes sort of sense. But for me, here's the thing, is that I'm a tiny bit agoraphobic, in that I don't, festivals actually sort of freak me out a little bit. I prefer the smaller ones, like Arctangent and Trees. Usually Download is so big, it scares me a bit. You have to get a truck. You have to get a truck between your dressing room and the stage. That's not right. There should be a door between your dressing room and the stage, not a racetrack. So Download is one of the ones that sketches me out a bit, as much as I love it. So for someone to say, hey, we're going to do Download, but about the size of a school fete, then I was like, sign me up, man. So not only was it like really exclusive to get in for the public and for the acts, but also it was like this magic mini one, and I didn't have to freak out. You could just walk everywhere, and it's great. And it was beyond that. I know I feel like I'm going off on one here, but it really was amazing. It was absolutely crammed with like all my buddies from going back, from really old buddies like Frank, who headlined my stage, and all his band are my friends from, the start of my band, Taran and Kahir, all those guys, to new buddies that I've made, Wargasm, I'm very good friends with Wargasm, and they were there, and we were all hanging out. So it was people I hadn't seen for 20 years. And well, I've seen Frank more recently than that, but even older buddies, to people that, I was with maybe just last week at a writing session. It just felt like it was like a big birthday party, and it was just amazing. And then the set that me and Jacko did, I thought it was fire. I really thought, because that was the first time that we'd had a chance to play the stuff from King of Clubs, the very aggressive stuff, and put on the black shirts and the black trousers and fucking have it. And Download is the perfect festival to do that. And I was a little bit afraid that I might, miss Download. We might go through the whole King Club cycle without bringing that record to Download. And it's such a Download record. Yeah. And so I feel really pleased that we managed to go and like do the really heavy stuff, before going on to this record, which is a bit more mellow. So for many, many, many reasons, it was maybe my favorite festival I've ever played. It was incredible. It was incredible.
Yeah, no, it was magical, and I'd agree. It's probably my favourite festival that I've ever been to, and probably ever will be to, just because of the atmosphere. And your set was one of the prime examples of, you just came on, you gave it your all, and obviously the audience reciprocated that, because they've had no outlet for that energy and passion, for the last sort of year and a half before that. Memories that are going to last a lifetime for sure from that one. And interesting. You touched on, of course, King of the Clubs, your last album, very, very heavy. So moving to the present now, The Atheist is out on November the 25th. That's your new album, and you touched on it. It's a bit of a change in, sonic direction from you. So, for listeners to the podcast that perhaps have only heard, the singles from it so far, what should they expect from the whole album?
Well, I guess the singles by their very nature are sort of the poppier, more immediate kind of stuff, big choruses, guitar solos, what have you. There is a lot of that on the record. The whole, I think every track on the first side really could have been a single in that sense, very immediate. The second side gets a little bit more thoughtful, and that wasn't intentional, but that was my manager came up with the track listing because I was having trouble, and he was like, well, how about you just absolutely cram the first half with like these sugary pop singles until people can't take any more, and then the flip side is maybe a little bit more introspect. And I thought that was quite cool, actually. So so half of it is basically what you've heard on the singles, and then the other half is slightly more thoughtful, slightly softer, a little bit more melancholy material. I like the the melancholy and stuff. And I've been trying to make a more melancholy record for a long time. And I guess, yeah, really all the melancholy stuff. Side A is very positive and very life affirming. And side B is like, oh, that's sad. Let's talk about our feelings, you know? So I like the way that's worked out. So yeah, it's basically what you've heard on the singles, but then with some more thoughtfully bits too.
Yeah, no, definitely. We've had a sneak peek already, and we're going to be listening to it a little bit more. Or you know, I will, and we'll be getting a review out, obviously, on the website, and certainly on the initial, you know, listening that I ran through. You know, just echo, you know, what you say. You know, a lot of really enjoyable moments on there, some, you know, reflective moments and whatnot in you know, the second half, I guess, and you know, just overall package, you know, just a very, you know, I found it just a very enjoyable listen, very fun kind of listen, you know, which
thanks.
Is obviously something, you know, really good, isn't what you want from a record, because you're not really going to listen to a record that isn't fun to listen to, I suppose. But yeah. Talk Hard was the first experience anyone got from the album. Obviously, that was the first single that came out. So, you know, what is the story behind the song, and you know, why did you pick that song to be the lead single?
Well, Talk Hard was one of 3 tracks that I did as a sort of proof of concept for what I wanted to do with the record. I went in with Mark, the producer, ahead of time, quite a long while before I made the rest of it. To sort of, so that he and I could find out how we would work together, because we'd hung out together, but we never really worked together. And if we could achieve the kind of sound that I was after. I'd done a few sessions with different producers trying to see what might work, and none of them were quite it. And so then when we did Talk Hard and Lena with Mark, they really clicked, and we could hear that the sound was there, and we thought, right, okay, great, let's do this. And so they were the tracks that everyone knew before I'd even made the rest of the record. So they were always going to be, I think they were always going to be singles, really, because everyone could hear the immediacy, plus we got used to them. I mean, Talk Hard and Lena, those are both good examples of songs that I wrote just sort of by accident, just fiddling around, without ever imagining that I would be the one that would sing them or even release them. I sort of thought, particularly Lena was a sort of more like a thought experiment to see, could I write, or could anyone write, a modern day 80s rock power ballad, you know, in the vein of Toto or like Queen, maybe, you know. And I wrote it, and I was like, well, it would go something like this, and it would have like a big solo. And I was like, actually, that's pretty fucking good. And I wrote the rest of it, and then I think I played it to the management, and they were like, "You've got to put this out." And I was like, "Oh, okay, great." And then I went back to Talk Hard and thought, well, if I can do Lena, I guess I could do Talk Hard as well. I'd played Talk Hard with Jacko, my drummer, before Jen had joined the ensemble. And often at rehearsals, if we've sort of, you know, finished ahead of time, we know what we're going to play for the show coming up. We might have an hour or even half an hour left. I might say to the unlucky members of my band, hey, let's try this. I got a new thing. And they always want to hear new music as well, and they're always excited. So it's hardly a chore. And so I would say to Jacko, hey, play this beat, sing this harmony on top so I can sort of hear how it goes. And he was just so excited. He was like, that's great. I love it. And I was like, oh, cool, you know, because I hadn't considered that maybe we could do something with it. And then, you know, to hear it with live instruments, with the drums and with my guitar and with the harmonies going, then you can really, it makes a lot more sense, and I can hear it in my sort of voice, as it were. So that really helped to make me think, oh, maybe I could put this out myself. Because previously I might have considered them both like way too poppy and way too saccharine. And like Lena's got that stupid guitar solo in it. And I thought, no fucking way. But that's what made me get the third member in, because previously I would sort of think, well, there's no point writing like a song with a big guitar solo, because how would I reproduce that on stage? But then when I just had written a song that had to have a huge guitar solo, and I was like, oh, well, I guess I'll get someone else in to play that, you know, so it sort of worked backwards. So those two songs were sort of proof of concepts, like I say, of things that I never thought I would do. I didn't know if they would fit within the Jamie Lenman idiom, as it were. Turns out they just about do. I guess they do. I'm always waiting for people to get surprised and disgusted by whatever my new record is and go, no, that's it. You've pushed me too far. I'm not buying this one. And they never do. They're unshockable, my audience. So, you know, You wait till you see what I got coming next.
Oh, excellent. Well, we can't wait. And yeah, I guess, you know, they are unshockable, the audience, because they are acclimatized to your willingness to kind of experiment and change direction, you know, and obviously go with the flow. And that kind of links to my next sort of question, where I read a quote from you recently. You know, the time frame for you writing these songs was around about the time you were getting to tour finally, you know, King of Clubs. So obviously you're on stage playing the heavy stuff, but you know, mentally you're already kind of moved on to this, you know, mellower stuff. You know, how difficult or frustrating is that, you know, for you as an artist to kind of have to almost leave like this work that you're clearly going to be proud of and want to get out into the world, and have to perhaps leave it to the side for a little while you finish off, you know, the promotion of what you've already got out there?
It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating, but it's always the job, because you know, you write a record, it takes maybe a year to get all the songs together, then you spend another couple of months making it, then really between like getting in the studio and having it mastered is probably another 6 months, and then you give it to the label and they're like, okay, we'll give us another 6 months, you know. And so by the time you get out on tour, which might be even later, there's like 2.5 years between you writing that song and you getting to play it. That's so long. That's such a long time. And in between that, you're always working on new material, or you mostly are. So yeah, by the time I get out on tour, I'm sort of over the songs. And I have to find a new enthusiasm every night for them, which is helped by, you know, how great it sounds with my band with Jack and Jen. That's fun, and their enthusiasm. And of course, they're not quite as sick of them as I am. So they're still quite excited about playing Talk Hard, you know? But at the same time, yeah, I want to play the new stuff that no one's even heard. These last 5 shows, if you count the 2 shows we're going to do, that's 9 shows that I'll have played where I'm playing a set that is mostly stuff that no one has ever heard. Not just stuff from a new record that's just come out. I mean, stuff from a record that hasn't even come out, right? So it's as new can get. And I'm still thinking, maybe we could fit in that new one I wrote last week that hasn't even been recorded, you know, because that's where my mind's at. So yeah, you have to sort of get your brain into what for you is last year's fashions every night. And mostly I'm able to do it. And then when I'm on stage and we're going through it, I remember, oh yeah, this tune is good. But I'm champing at the bit to do the even newer stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Wait.
Yeah, but I mean, it is really brave, you know, to go out there and, you know, play the majority of tracks being, you know, new tracks from you. On our other podcast, the Discover New Music podcast, we have a feature called Setlist Science, and we are, you know, talk around, you know, how much thought process goes into the creation of a set list. And
oh wow,
obviously, you know, I guess, you know, the question for you, you know, how much energy do you put into, you know, the formulation of that set list, and, you know, are there any rules you tend to try and follow with it, or?
Yes, absolutely. Wow, I want to go on your other podcast about set lists. And I spend so much of my life agonizing over what to put in a set list, because I've always said you make the records for yourself, but you play the shows for the audiences, right?
Yeah.
You can't worry about what you put on your record, whether people will like it or not, because that's nonsense, to waste of time. But you can worry about what you play at your shows, because people come to the shows expecting to hear certain things. And I guess with these sets, like I say, when I've been playing new material, I've broken my own rule there, because really it was this year's download that put me in a corner, because no one had heard anything from the record. I brought in Jen and we'd been practicing all the new stuff, and I felt like I'd done the King of Clubs thing at Pilot, the download Pilot. So the options were go to download 22 and just play the same old bullshit that I played, you know, last year. The Future is Dead or Waterloo Teeth or whatever, all that stuff with just me and Jacko, and just have Jen standing there sucking her thumbs. Or go all in and just play half an hour of music that no one had ever heard. And even though that was the frightening thing, usually the frightening thing or the difficult thing is the right thing to do, because what it would have meant that, you know, if we'd have just done last year's set again, people would have been like, oh yeah, and Jamie Lenman was there again, I guess, you know, yawn.
Yeah.
He did the same thing. Or if I do the new stuff, either like everyone hates it and people are like, oh my God, can you believe how hard Jamie Lenman shit the bed? Or what happened was that everyone loved it. And like,
Yeah.
oh my God, Jamie Lenman played half an hour new material and it was fucking great. Either way, people would have been talking about it
Yeah.
rather than just the same old stuff we did last year. And from that point onwards, that gave me the confidence to say, hey, well, you know what? I'm just going to play these new songs, because at Download, you know, people were singing along to the choruses that they'd only heard like a minute previous. They'd heard the first chorus, then by the second chorus, they were singing along. I was like, okay, well, these songs are sort of immediate enough. That was the way they were designed, you know, to be short, sharp, shock, 3 minutes, verse, chorus, verse. They can work in an environment where they haven't been road tested, so to speak. So I did break my rule. Usually I try and fit the set, you know, every 2 or 3 songs, there's a song that everyone knows, you know.
Yeah.
And you know what, on this tour, I'm still kind of doing that, because now I've got the singles out. I can still, you won't go more than 2 songs without one that you know and you like, you know. So I still kind of do that. That's my general rule. And but it's still like, what, 9 new songs? It's pretty heavy. It went down well. What can I say?
Well, yeah, and they will do. You know, like you say, these songs are really accessible and fun. So you know, they are going to, you know, come across that way. And speaking of, you know, accessible, fun, enjoyable, etc., etc., I just wanted to touch as well on the videos for the 2 tracks that we've mentioned now. Obviously, Talk Hard and Lena. I've really enjoyed the videos. I just really enjoy it, and kind of music videos are a bit of a lost art now because we haven't got, you know, the TV and whatnot to watch them. But you know, clearly a lot of love has gone into those videos, and they're very, very enjoyable to watch, and obviously fit the songs well. So I just wanted to touch on it. Obviously, listeners can check out the videos through the links in our bio with the podcast and go and enjoy them from there. But yeah, what are your, you know, memories of recording them videos? And yeah, obviously, are you just as proud as I am? You know, of enjoying them and everything. So
yeah, I'm glad you touched on that. I'm glad you picked up on it, because people haven't really mentioned the videos. I spent a lot of time thinking about them. I knew, after having made sort of all the promotional material, most of the promotional material for King of Clubs myself, because we were in lockdown and I didn't have any other option. And I'd sort of co-directed, or art directed at least, all the stuff for Devolver and or Shuffle with my photographer Scott Chalmers. The videos were part of a whole visual overhaul for this record, because I did the 3 previous records, Shuffle, King of Clubs and Devolver. I did them with my buddy Space, and they had a sound to them, a very sort of sharp kind of digital sound, and the visuals corresponded with a very sharp digital, almost fashion look, you know. And so then when I decided I was going to do something a bit more mellow sound wise, I realized that of course that would have to be mirrored in the visuals, which is why I sort of softened everything out, and I went for, you know, browns and blues instead of like red, white and black, you know, on the previous record. And I wanted to, even in as much as using outdoor spaces for the photography, I was very clear on that in terms of the press shots, but also the videos. And even, you know, the type of lens we would use and the type of lighting. I know a little bit more about this these days. And I'd seen some videos that Jen, my guitarist, who is also in False Advertising, great band, she directed some videos not only for her own band, but also she'd sent me some bits for one of the videos of King of Clubs. And I was like, here is someone who knows how to point a light and how to use a lens. And she's got that sort of, that more mellowed out, softer look that I want. So I said, Jen, hey, I can't remember whether I asked her to play my guitars first or direct my videos first, but I'm relying on her a lot. I'm leaning on her a lot during this campaign, and she's got the skills to pay the bills. So I said, yeah, Jen, how would you feel about, well, first of all, doing Talk Hard, again, as a sort of experiment to see how we would work together. And then when that went so well, that was entirely her concept with the string. I just thought that was so clever. Then we did Lena, which was more my concept, because I wanted it to lean heavily on my relationship with my wife and have that reflected in all the photos. It's all real, you know, all those photos of us. And then we've done another one for my next single, which I'm going to remain tight-lipped about. But I hope she will continue to work with me, well, both as a band member and as a video director, because we think along the same lines. We steal all the same influences, you know, and I don't really have to explain myself too much to her, because she kind of already knows what I'm thinking, and she gets it right first time. She's a real wizard, you know?
Yeah, certainly. It always helps when you're thinking along the same lines as the people you're collaborating with, which probably brings me nicely, you know, to just mention as well, obviously, Michael Parkin, who's done the artwork for the album. Obviously, it's stunning artwork, yeah, for the album. And obviously, listeners, again, there's links in the bio. You can go and pre-order the album, and there's posters, I believe, T-shirts, etc., with it, all of the, you know, the stunning artwork that Michael's come up with. So, you know, how did that collaboration come together with Michael?
Dude, you have done your research. I'm impressed. You're bringing in all the names. Yeah, Parky has been one of my closest friends for a long time now. He comes from the same area as I do. He lived in sort of Farnborough, Badshot Lee kind of area. And funny enough, when we were kids, we would go to all the same gigs at the West End Centre and whatnot. And we even had a lot of mutual friends, but we didn't meet each other until, you know, maybe 5-6 years ago. He's an illustrator, 100% illustrator. I do lots of things, including illustration. He's just straight down the line illustrator. He's very busy doing books for people and lots of editorial for very high-class newspapers, constantly in demand. And it's great to be able to, because I don't actually know that many illustrators. I know a bunch of musicians, obviously. You know, you got to go, you get in a van, you step outside, and there's a bunch of musicians. Illustrators sort of operate on their own. There's no, you don't go to a gig by an illustrator where there's there's like 2 illustrator support bands. It's not how it works. So Parkin is really one of the only people that I can sort of, you know, talk to about that side of my career and moan about, you know, clients and people wanting things colored in differently and whatnot. So we've built up a great relationship along those lines. And obviously I've always admired his work. And the first thing you think, if you're an artist, when you meet someone else who has a great skill like Jen, you know, that was always in my mind when I met her, like, oh man, we should collaborate on something at some point. Is the same with Parky. I just thought, wow, how can we work together on something? Because Parky also plays drums. He's a great drummer as well. So I've been thinking for years about how we could get together, and I wanted to bring him in on all the stuff. But at the time, I was doing things like, you know, Devolver, Shuffle, King Clubs. All the artwork for that was sort of photo based. Apart from Shuffle, which was very much me, I wanted to do that myself. Or the little logograms. That's my personal peccadillo for design. But then when it came to the Atheist, and I knew I was going to soften things out, and he was doing a lot of maps at the time that I was thinking about the Atheist for literally just for travel blogs and websites and magazines. I thought, oh, well, that would be great if there was a map, but the map was me, or the map was my album. And then Parky could do one for me, and we could bring in those earth tones, the blues and the yellows and the oranges, a sort of a summer feel, even though the records ended up coming out in the winter.
Yeah.
I thought that would really match. And so then began a long conversation about what it would be, because it's quite intricate, it's quite detailed, and all the little, again, there's a little icon per song, which is something that I like to do. Lots of chats about that. Some of them were very definite. Some of them we left until the last minute, you know, and he was still drawing stuff as late as a couple of weeks ago when I had to like send it to the press, and I had to say, listen, Parky, stop drawing things. I have to send it to the distribution guys to get it made up. Just a very, very enriching process, and we got to spend a lot of time together as well to discuss it. I got to his studio in Peckham. He'd come down to my house. We'd eat some burgers. You know, we'd watch a terrible movie. We'd do a bit of work. It was really, really wonderful. And another great example, like with Jen, or like with Scott, another photographer, or like with Jack, my drummer, of getting the chance to work with fabulous artists and sort of take their stuff and go, hey, I'm Jamie Lenman, but also look at these people. Isn't it great? You know.
Yeah, no, absolutely fantastic, and you know, it works so well. Absolutely beautiful piece of artwork, and listeners again can head out through the bio, find the links to pre-order it and have a look for themselves. So I'm going to swing things back to the live side of the industry. Obviously, we talked about the Hertfordshire St Albans show coming up, but December the 18th, you have Lenmania in Manchester, and I was looking at the bill, and I mean the list I've just jotted down quickly. I mean St Agnes, Sick Joy, James and the Cold Gun, Jen and the Degenerates. Pretty much every band on the bill. I just looked at and went, wow. So and obviously you're playing twice as well. How proud are you of being able to put such a bill together?
Very proud, and not to continue this whole thing to big up other people. It's good to big up other people. My agent and my manager were very instrumental in that. And in fact, do you know what because we've been talking about it for a long time, but when it came time, the crunch time, literally the week before it announced, when all the bands had to get nailed down, I was on holiday. So I was just like, I'm going away. I'm going to be back on Monday, have this sorted by the time I get back. And they did. They did, apart from the one band that we were still trying to get hold of, Jen and the Degenerates. But all the other bands were locked down. No, it was great. They worked so hard on that. And on the one hand, it's amazing to be able to gather, acts like St Agnes and Sick Joy and Cold Gun with a bit of a name behind them, but also to shine a light on smaller acts, people like Rad Pit, who I don't think many people have heard of, but who are sick. And maybe Katie Malco is more of an acquired taste as well. I've known her for years through various, labels and bodies and whatnot, but I'm really excited to be playing a show with her. There's loads of people on that bill. I forget who they all are now. Other half are sort of a smaller band who are on the same label as me, Big Scary Monsters.
From Norwich, I believe, yeah.
Norwich, right. And they sound great. They sound a bit noughties, actually, a bit early noughties. So you get the name. That's what we try to do with Lenmania. You get the name acts that you've heard about and that you're excited to go and see anyway. And then you get the sort of lesser known acts that you're like, oh, well, I'll check them out as well, And I think it would be really great. What I always try to do at a gig is not vet the bands. I encourage people to, I know it's a bit of a habit. People, if they haven't heard the support act, they'll Spotify them. I'd say don't do that. I'd say come prepared. Just come with open ears. I never do that. But yeah, it's a heck of a lineup. It always is. Somehow it just works out. When I think about the people we had on the second one at Trees, we had Loathe and we had Show Me the Body. Incredible. So was it Show Me the Body? Is that what they were called? Man, maybe I've got that wrong. The dudes with the 3 coffins in the artwork, they're fucking sick with the banjo. I think it was Show Me the Body. Anyway, amazing acts. And this year is no different. Apart from the fact that it is in the north this time, which is very refreshing.
Definitely. And obviously listeners, 18th of December, if you're looking for a Christmas party, no better place to go than Mania.
It is going to go off. Yeah. It's going to be unbelievable. Yeah, come along.
Yeah, no, definitely. With that lineup, you'd be a fool to miss it, listeners. And just to finish off that live, side of the discussion, obviously, as we said, Hertford, St Albans, Manchester, dates are locked in. You probably can't announce much else, but I'm guessing there's going to be opportunities coming up for listeners who enjoy the Atheist when it comes out to be able to come and check out those songs live.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I can't announce them because we haven't booked them, but we're definitely looking into, an album tour, a thorough album tour that goes all the way up and down the country. That's what I'd be looking forward to. But also at the same time, I'm already booking festivals for next year. I think we just announced Takedown, which is great in Portsmouth. Yes. I love Takedown. Yeah. And I think there's another couple already booked that I don't have announced yet. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing an album tour in sort of springtime, I guess. And then festivals in the summer. And then after then I couldn't really say. But yeah, I want to play a lot of shows. Well, a lot,
Yeah.
More than St Albans and Hertford, let's say that.
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone would agree that you certainly don't hold back in getting out on the road. You're someone that is accessible, and listeners will be able to find a show. And to do that these days, they have to follow you on social media because that's how everyone stays in touch with everyone. So we've reached a portion of the podcast where I share the handles for your social media, and yours make my life very easy
Oh my
because
God.
they're the same on all of them, which always
Yes.
helps, and they're your name. So,
They're my
I mean,
name.
I would like to think listeners would be able to track you down themselves, but just in case, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc., is all at Jamie Lenman. So, obviously, encourage listeners to give you a follow, to keep up to date on the live shows that are going to come, and obviously the new material that's probably already been worked on and will be coming, later down the line.
Yeah.
So we have Independent Venue Week coming up. So swinging right back to what I mentioned at the start. At the moment, we're doing some prep ahead of Independent Venue Week, and we're asking every artist we interview to give a shout out to their favourite independent venue. So where would you like to give a shout out to, Jamie? I imagine there's probably a few.
Do you know what? Is Tuts an independent venue in Glasgow?
Yeah, I believe it is still.
Safe to say that's not council run, because my first thought would be, the Westie, which is where I'm from, but that's council run. So it would have to be King Tuts, in Glasgow, who have always treated me so well, and I go there whenever I can, and with any luck, I might be back there in the spring. That would be really nice, because we did have a Glasgow show scheduled for last winter, but everybody got COVID, so we spent the week buffing our eyes out instead. That got cancelled. I don't think that was at Tuts. But the first time I ever went to Tuts was on tour with Ruben, and it was the first ever venue that gave us like a hot meal, and we were like, what? Because we'd been living on cornflake sandwiches for like 3 weeks or whatever it was, and then we got to Tuts and they were like, what do you want for tea? And we were like, excuse me, baking powder, I'll have the tuna baked potato, please. So I'll always go back to Tuts, and I'd say they were probably my number one independent venue. Yeah,
no, excellent. Thank you for that. I mean, obviously, we want to put the spotlight on these venues, because without the venues, the bands aren't going to exist, and without the bands, there's no industry. So they are, the whole ecosystem relies on these independent venues. So absolutely delighted to be able to do something and put something out in relation to that. So absolutely delighted to have been able to talk to you as well, Jamie. I say one that I've certainly been looking forward to, and you certainly have not disappointed. Very enjoyable.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah. So the final question always on the podcast is to chuck it to you, and what would be your final message for everyone listening today?
Well, I guess my final message would be thanks for taking a chance on the Full Pelt podcast at YouTube. It's great that people are tuning into lesser known podcasts and helping you build your audience, or if you followed it just for me, then great. Thanks for your interest in me, but maybe go and check out all the other Full Pelt podcasts. I saw you had Luke Branch on there, and you had old FT. He's a good one, isn't he?
Yeah, he's all right, isn't he?
So thanks for your time, everyone listening, and Paul as well. Thanks for asking me to come on. It's been a thrill.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. I really do hope you enjoyed that chat there with Jamie Lenman. Make sure you check out his new album, The Atheist, which is out on November the 25th. And of course, follow Jamie on social media. You can also follow Full Pelt on social media. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt, and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And finally, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, wherever you're watching or listening. And we'll be back very soon for another episode of the Full Pelt Music Podcast.